Hi, this is Katie Buck, here with my interview for field experience number 2 for EDU 709 GO1. I am here with Diane Stevens, and she is an ESL teacher, also at McDonald Elementary School, the same school that I interviewed from last time. She teaches different grades and has some different background experience. We are talking about which English, whose English. We'll be mostly talking about standard English, non-standard English, and dialect. Okay, can you tell me about your teaching experience?
I began teaching 18 years ago. I started in middle school English class. Then I split my time between middle school English and high school English before I moved to ESL. I've been teaching ESL for 10 years.
All right. Tell me about your current students, their grade level, their proficiency levels, and the languages that they speak.
I teach grades 4 and 5 at McDonald Elementary School. I have proficiency levels probably from 2s to 2 to 4. If they're higher than 4, they usually go out to the regular classroom. I don't have any brand new speakers this year, luckily. They speak Gujarati, Spanish, Ukraine, Russian, and I think that's it.
And how many students do you have in your groups?
I have 6 fifth graders and 12 fourth graders.
Okay, and I'll mention also that you are currently teaching virtually, that the whole district is.
Yes.
So it's a different experience than it has been in the past trying to get kids to log on, because I'm also doing the same. What is your understanding or personal definition of standard and non-standard English?
So standard English is the English that I think people use in formal conversations, in education, in business. And non-standard English would be like street English that you would use in conversations. We talk a lot in my class about, or we have in the past, haven't gotten into it this year, about how when you speak, you talk differently to your mom than you do to your teacher or your friends.
Yes. Okay. So how do you balance your teaching of standard English and non-standard English in the classroom? So you just started to touch on that a little. It sounds like maybe as your year progresses, you'll start to talk more about that.
Right. So there is the part where we actually, when I get to it, is usually when we do persuasive. So we will use, and last year we never made it to persuasive because of COVID, but hopefully we get there this year. So when they're talking to an audience, they have to know their audience. So they have to know which language they're going to use or which version they're going to use. Are they going to use the standard, the formal, or the informal, like they're talking to their friends?
Okay. That's an interesting way to teach that, because I'm only usually working with the primary students, so I don't even necessarily think that way because I don't teach the modes to the extent that you do. But that probably is like tying it into their audience. I think I could get younger kids to understand that too. Do you think that teachers are aware of the varieties or the dialects of English that they teach? And if not, should they be aware of them?
I think they should be aware of them. I'm not sure how many content teachers look at that, like, or consider that.
Like use that lens almost. Like we're kind of like, our brains are sort of trained to like look at things from a different angle all the time because language is what we do.
Right.
Okay, so how about you? Are you aware of varieties, dialects that you teach? And if so, like, can you recall a time that it impacted your teaching, or maybe like an anecdote of like a time that you said something and the student kind of looked at you like, what do you mean? I don't know that word or the meaning of it in that way.
So I am aware. I did AIM training, which is the science of reading training. And we had a couple of units or sessions on like dialects and how you should not diminish a student's dialect because that is their language. But also they need to be aware of when to use it and when not to use it. So recalling a time, I do remember this. I was teaching a young boy from Honduras in middle school, and he asked me in Spanish, could he have a drink of water? And I said, in English, say it with me. And so I said, can I have a drink of water? And he looks at me and he goes, water? Because that's how I say it where I grew up.
Right.
And he didn't know what I was talking about because I didn't say water like everybody else does around here.
That is too funny because one of the anecdotes I wrote about in a previous paper for this sociolinguistics course, I wrote that my mom is from Northeast PA and says water, and my father is from Northeast Philly and says water. And I said, I will code switch that constantly and never think twice about it. But my husband always says, you said water today. You said water. I'm like, I don't even know. And my students have picked up on that.
Well, I think that was the first time I realized, like, they're learning to talk like I speak because
Yes.
I am teaching them
Your English.
my English.
Right.
Yeah.
Which might not be the same as my English,
Right.
which is
Right.
so crazy to think because we're so close together, you know?
Right.
What are some ways that you have or will teach your ELs about the varieties of English? Like, what is there anything that, like, you just shared about the when you're teaching persuasive, but is there something specific, like that was a teachable moment, the water thing, but and the AIM science of reading, that sounds kind of interesting and ties into some of our past readings as well. Like, what did they say? Like, don't diminish. Instead, like, how do you maybe make them proud of that, but also teach them more standard forms?
Well, I know, and I don't know if this answers your question. Let me know.
Okay.
There is a story that we read, and I'm not sure which level of book it is, of the reach it is, where it reads with dialect. So it says y'all, it skips words, it doesn't have endings on some words. And when my students read it, they automatically fix it in their head. So they will read what they think is right, not what the words say.
So more of what you've been teaching them, the more
Right.
formal, like making sure you say the ing instead of in.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And I'll point that out to them. I'll say, you know what, you did a great job. You're fixing the language, how you think it should be, but here's the words. And then I'll like read it to them.
Right.
To show them how like it was supposed to say. I can't remember what story it was.
Huh. That's interesting though. But obviously they're learning the standard forms and like the participles or like the past tense or using more formal language, like all of you instead of y'all, you know,
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah, we also watched a video and it was all about Pittsburghese and how they say
Oh.
yins instead of yous or y'all. I was like, I never heard of yins before. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up? Any other stories or things you thought of? If not, no worries.
I can't think of anything. Just what comes to my mind is how there are different words for different things like soda and pop and whatever else they call it. Will come up sometimes in conversation. The kids will ask me what that is.
Right.
And then you have to explain it to their dialect or what they're learning here.
Yeah, and I also wonder too sometimes, like if I have a student that maybe lived in Texas or Florida or another state for a while before they ended up in Pennsylvania, was there any like specific dialect that they learned in those short months
Right.
before coming that you have to think, okay, they've learned a different version of English already, too,
Right.
you know? So
Right.
it's, now you're like their third language.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I
you're
really
welcome.
appreciate your time.